Have you ever had a dream so big it scared you? What if that dream got you into the biggest trouble of your life? That's where our story begins, with a young man named Joseph. He was the favorite son of his father, Jacob, and he had a gift that set him apart, a coat of many colors, as bright as a sunrise. But this gift, this symbol of love, also made him a target for his 11 older brothers. Joseph also had dreams, not just daydreams, but visions of the future. He dreamed his brothers' sheaves of grain bowed down to his. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars all bowed before him. He shared these dreams with his family, maybe with a little too much pride. He didn't realize that a prophecy shared too soon can stir up envy instead of wonder, and envy is a quiet poison. It twisted his brothers' love into a bitter resentment. One day, out in the fields, their bitterness boiled over. "Here comes the dreamer," they sneered. They ripped that beautiful coat from his back, tearing away the symbol of their father's affection. Then they threw him into a deep, empty pit. When a caravan of traders passed by, they sold their own brother for 20 pieces of silver. The boy who dreamed of greatness was now a slave, on his way to a foreign land called Egypt. Back home, they dipped the colorful coat in goat's blood and presented it to their father. Jacob's heart shattered. He believed his beloved son had been torn apart by a wild animal, and his world collapsed into grief. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Joseph was sold to a man named Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's high-ranking officials. Even as a slave in a strange land, Joseph's character shone. He worked hard, he was honest, and he had a wisdom that seemed to come from God. Potiphar noticed and soon put Joseph in charge of his entire household. Everything he touched prospered. But life is rarely a simple climb to the top. Trouble found him again. Potiphar's wife made false accusations against him, and just like that, an innocent man was thrown into prison. The heavy iron doors slammed shut, and Joseph was once again in the dark, his hopes seemingly crushed. You might think this is where his story ends, forgotten in a dungeon. But what looked like a prison was actually a place of preparation. Even behind bars, Joseph never lost his integrity or his faith. His character once again earned him respect, and he was soon put in charge of the other prisoners. And it was here, in this unlikely place, that dreams returned to his life. Two of Pharaoh's former servants, his chief cupbearer and his chief baker, were imprisoned with him. Both had disturbing dreams they couldn't understand. Joseph listened and told them, interpretations belong to God. He explained that the cupbearer would be restored to his position, but the baker would meet a tragic end, and everything happened exactly as he had said. Before the cupbearer left, Joseph made a simple plea. "When you are free, please, remember me." But he was forgotten. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and 2 full years passed. Joseph remained in prison, a distant memory, but God had not forgotten him. One night, Pharaoh himself had 2 bizarre and unsettling dreams. In one, 7 healthy fat cows were devoured by 7 ugly thin ones. In the other, 7 full heads of grain were swallowed by 7 withered ones. He was deeply troubled, and none of his magicians or wise men could offer an explanation. That's when the cupbearer's memory finally sparked. He remembered the young Hebrew man in prison, who had perfectly interpreted his dream. Immediately, Joseph was summoned. He was rushed from the dungeon, cleaned up, shaved, and brought before the most powerful man in the world. "I am told you can interpret dreams," Pharaoh said. Joseph's reply was full of humility and confidence. "I cannot do it," he said, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." He then explained that both dreams carried the same message. Egypt would experience 7 years of incredible abundance, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. The entire court listened, captivated by his calm certainty. He didn't just interpret the dream. He offered a solution. He advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise man to collect and store 1/5 of the harvest during the good years to prepare for the bad ones. Pharaoh looked at his officials, then back at Joseph, and declared, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" In that moment, the slave became a ruler. The prisoner was promoted to second in command of all Egypt. The pit had finally led to the palace. Joseph oversaw the greatest storage project in history. For 7 years, the granaries of Egypt overflowed. Then, just as the dream foretold, famine gripped the land. It was severe, spreading not just through Egypt, but to all the surrounding regions, including the land of Canaan, where Joseph's family still lived. Hearing there was grain in Egypt, Jacob sent 10 of his sons to buy food. One day, as Joseph managed the distribution, a group of weary, hungry men bowed low before him. He recognized them instantly. It was them, his brothers, the ones who had sold him, who had left him for dead. His heart pounded in his chest, a storm of anger, grief, and a deep aching love. He kept his identity a secret, testing them to see if they had changed, if the cruelty in their hearts had softened over the years. He put them through trials, demanding they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, to him. When he finally saw Benjamin, his full brother, who was just a boy when he was taken away, the emotion became too much to bear. Joseph cleared the room of all his attendants. He stood before his stunned brothers, and the tears he had held back for so long finally broke free. "I am Joseph," he sobbed. A dead silence fell over the room. Shock turned to fear. They were standing before the second most powerful man in Egypt. "The brother they had betrayed. Is my father still alive?" he asked. They were too terrified to answer. But then he spoke words that would echo through history. "Do not be distressed," he said gently. "It was not you who sent me here, but God. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Forgiveness washed over the room, healing wounds that were decades old. Every ounce of pain, the pit, the slavery, the prison had been woven into a masterpiece of redemption. The family was reunited. Jacob and all his children moved to Egypt, where they were given the best land and were protected from the famine. Years later, looking back on the wild, unpredictable journey of his life, Joseph could see the purpose in the pain. His story teaches us that faith doesn't promise a life without hardship, but it does promise that our hardships won't be wasted. Every dark valley can be a pathway to a higher purpose. So if you find yourself in a pit, remember the dreamer. The author of your story is still writing, and the final chapter might just be more beautiful than you could ever imagine. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the deeper meanings in life. See you next time.